Why does your intuition matter? Why would you want to connect to the voice of your soul for guidance, for wisdom? Why would the Akashic Records matter to you? That's what we're talking about this week in this episode. I wonder if you've ever felt like you've learned to ignore your gut feelings, if you've learned to shut down the voice of your intuition rather than cultivating it and nurturing it for your whole life, so that when you need it, or when it's wanting to nudge you and invite you to pay attention to something, then you can just trust yourself, right? You can trust that voice of your wisdom to know that you can confidently make a decision or choose a direction and then not doubt or second guess yourself. Why do we do that? Why do we shut ourselves down that way? Well, I mean, there's many reasons, but I was reading Dr. Gabor Mate's materials and what he says, and this felt so poignant and tragic in a way, but I believe there's so much truth in this. What he says about that is, as children, we would rather give up ourselves, whatever personal truth we have when we're young, in order to not lose our attachment to our parents or our caregivers. And I don't know about you, or if someone you know has had this experience where as a kid, perhaps you saw things or heard things, or you had experiences where you kind of saw beyond this reality and you were shut down for that. You were told, no, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't happen. Stop doing that. Or you weren't allowed to express your opinion or show any emotion because what the adults wanted mattered more than what you wanted as a child. It doesn't mean that you had any sort of trauma or abuse happen specifically, right? You may have had an amazing upbringing, and yet a part of you maybe still learned not to trust yourself. Maybe you still learned not to follow those nudges. If you were brought up in a family that nurtured those, wonderful, that's beautiful. And I bet you probably are more connected to your intuition now than someone who didn't have that experience, which is such a gift. But if you did lose yourself or shut down a part of yourself so that you would be loved, so that you wouldn't be rejected, so that you would not be made to feel wrong, then that's why the intuition shut down, right? That's why you stopped listening to yourself. And perhaps even in your teenage years or young adulthood or even adulthood, you had experiences that shut you down. So there was no time, no opportunity to undo that stuff from your childhood or undo and dig out access to your intuition. And so you perhaps repeat this pattern of not trusting yourself. And it might show up in your relationships, or it might show up at work, or with respect to your health, or, whatever area of your life, whatever slice of life you want to look at. Does it show up where you tend to look for confirmation or validation outside of yourself rather than really trusting what's inside you? Now, the thing with that is, it doesn't mean that we don't need experts out there and we don't need professionals who have training or education in certain areas, right? When it comes to something like medicine or taxes, you want a professional to advise you. Absolutely. There is a place for that. But when it comes to making choices for yourself, when it comes to listening to those red flags that might be popping up, and you're like, no, I can't be right about that, I'm going to squash that down, right? That's learned. We learned not to listen to ourselves. And so now, as the consciousness of the planet, of humanity is rising, you might be finding that there is something inside of you that wants to express itself more, wants to be more in concert with you. And you're like, I don't know, am I making it up? Why should I trust this voice? If you're finding yourself in that place, that's likely your intuition knocking, going like, hey, I'm still here. I'm still here. Let's reconnect. And there are so many ways to reconnect with our intuition. There really are. There's many different ways of channeling, or through meditation or journaling. One of the ways that I love, because it's consistent and it's a system, and I'm a systems person. So especially when I'm learning something, I love to have a path to follow. so that once I learn it, I can sort of bend and flow with it, and or even throw it out and just but I know how to get a certain result every time. And I think this is one of the reasons why the Akashic Records spoke to me so much, and why I've embraced it and stuck with it. Not just because they helped me heal from massive trauma and pain in my life, but because it's a system that really anyone can learn. And through it, you can learn to access your intuition with more trust and confidence, because you know who you're talking to, so to speak, of course, right? You know that you learn how to discern between something that your mind wants you to know versus something that definitely comes from that highest place of where your soul resides with the all that is. So the Akashic Records are the vibrational archive of our soul, of the universe. It's a quantum field of information. And there's a ton of science behind it, and it's super fun to study and to learn about. I actually teach a lot of the science that I've uncovered behind it in one of the courses that I teach on the records. But you don't have to understand the science. You don't even have to care about the science. Knowing how to read the records for yourself is actually really simple. But it's a matter of practicing it. It's a matter of knowing a system of how to get in and how to ask powerful questions and how to receive the information, how to basically focus and attune yourself to the energy of the records, to that frequency of your soul's book, so that you can receive information and trust it every single time. And the biggest thing that the records have given me, and I've seen it time and time again with the clients that I do readings for, or that I have taught my students, that I have taught how to read for themselves, it's really freedom. Freedom from their past, freedom from feeling like they can't trust themselves, freedom to be themselves in their own life. It's like a coming home to yourself. It's a lot of validation of yourself, not just yourself, but also the experiences that you have had. Because sometimes it might feel like life is taking you on this huge detour, and you're like, why am I here? Why did I do that? Chances are it's because it helped you to learn something or to experience something to balance out perhaps karma, or to redirect you in the direction that you actually wanted to go. But it's not until you go in and ask about it, or you look through, hindsight, right? Hindsight is always 20/20, that you can sort of put the pieces together, and then the detours make sense, and you realize they were not detours at all. That's what the records have given me, and my clients and my students. It's really confidence and self-trust and connection, reconnection to your wholeness, worthiness, enoughness, to that divinity inside you, so that you can still receive advice and expertise from people outside of you, especially when it's required. But you always trust that you know what choice is best for you. You always trust when a red flag comes up to pay attention to it instead of squashing it back down. So it's a way of taking your power back for you. And that's why intuition matters. That's why the Akashic Records matter, because they offer a system to help you remember, to help you plug yourself back into your wisdom, your highest wisdom for your highest good. And like I said, it's not the only way to do it. It's the way that I found is the most consistent. And so if you're curious about either having your records read for you or learning how to do it yourself, definitely check out the links I placed below the episode, because I have a course coming up where I teach you how to read your own records, how to ask powerful questions, help you reconnect to that information, and that soul wisdom that has always been there waiting for you to be ready. All right, everyone, have an amazing rest of your week. I will see you next time.